Hey friends, it's Mary Giordano and welcome to Unapologetically Wild. Every single day, you have a choice. You can stay where you are, or you can step into the possibility of something even greater. And I'm here to spark that flame within you and inspire you to show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. Messy, scared, and real. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to Unapologetically Wild. Let me ask you something. Do you ever sit there thinking, if I could just get motivated, I'd finally fill in the blank? You stare at the to-do list, you scroll past the workout, you keep putting off the project, the habit, the hard conversation, and in your head, you're waiting for that magical moment where it clicks, where you feel inspired, where the fire lights under your ass, where you finally feel ready and everything just flows. But let's be honest, how often does that actually happen? Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend it never does, because sure, sometimes the spark, it shows up at the start of a new year, when a vacation's coming on a random Tuesday afternoon, or when you hit rock bottom and decide something has to fucking change. But most days, the motivation, it's just not there. The inspiration feels non-existent, and the resistance is loud as hell. But guess what? A lack of motivation isn't what's holding you back. It's your relationship with discomfort. Because motivation, it's temporary, it's sporadic, and it's unreliable. And if you keep waiting for it to show up before you move, you'll stay stagnant in a life you keep saying you want to change. So today we're flipping the script. I'm breaking down why motivation is not the fuel. It's the reward. That's right. I said it. Motivation is what you get after you decide to move, even when you don't feel like it. We're talking about why the action comes first, why momentum, not motivation, is what actually carries you, and why waiting to feel ready is the real reason nothing in your life has changed. I hope this episode shifts something big for you. Let's get into it. The bottom line is you don't need more motivation. You need a better system, because motivation isn't a plan. It's a feeling, and feelings, they're fleeting. They change with your sleep, your stress, your cycle, the weather, your coffee or lack thereof. Hell, sometimes one unexpected text can throw your entire day sideways. So if you're sitting around waiting to feel motivated before you act, you're building your life on a moving target that's practically impossible to hit. And guess what? The ones who seem consistent, clear, always showing up, they're not riding some magical wave of motivation. They're not blessed with some hidden superpower you missed out on. They're just not making their next move dependent on how they feel. They're taking action despite what's going on internally and externally. And they've trained themselves to move and let the spark catch up. Because if you only act when it feels easy, you'll never build the muscle to act when it matters most. And that's what motivation won't teach you. Resilience. Think about it. You rarely want to work out until you're halfway through. Once the sweat hits and your body wakes up, the momentum kicks in. You don't feel inspired to write until your fingers start moving. And suddenly you're in flow, and the resistance that felt so loud gets quieter. You don't want to clean the kitchen until the music's on and you've done the first dish, and then you want to clean the whole damn house. Why? Because movement generates energy, and action creates traction. Motivation doesn't start the process. It meets you in motion. But that's the myth we've been sold, that you have to feel like it first, that readiness comes before action, that you have to be inspired to do something worthwhile. But that's not the way you make shit happen. Action has to lead. The discomfort has to be invited in. And the fear, the friction, the part of you that says, maybe I'll start tomorrow, that part has to be overridden with intentionality. Because let's get real, most of the results you're craving, they don't come from waiting for the right vibe. They come from movement, from taking one uncomfortable action and then another and another. Not because you felt like it, but because you chose to. You don't need to feel like the next level version of yourself to act like her. You just need to do the shit she'd do, especially when you don't feel like it. That's how you build the proof. Not by overthinking it, not by journaling about who you want to be while avoiding the thing that gets you there. Show up, take the action, let that be your evidence. And that's when motivation finally shows up. Not before, after. So let's talk about what's actually getting in your way. It's not laziness. It's not lack of discipline. It's not that you're broken or incapable. It's your relationship with discomfort. Because most of us, we've been taught to avoid discomfort at all costs. We've been conditioned to believe that if something feels hard, it must mean something's wrong. That ease equals safety and discomfort equals danger. But that's not always the case. In fact, it's rarely the case. Yes, sometimes discomfort is a red flag, but most of the time, it's just a sign that you're expanding beyond who you've been. It's the stretch, the friction, the resistance that shows you're growing. Because the second something feels inconvenient, awkward, uncertain, or out of your comfort zone, your brain throws up the emergency brake. It says, let's not do this. This could go wrong. This is too hard for you. Who do you think you are? You're going to embarrass yourself. Sound familiar? It's not your brain being mean. It's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Keep you safe, not successful. And there's a big difference. Because discomfort, even when it leads to growth, registers as danger to your nervous system. And if you've been stuck in survival mode for years, if your nervous system has learned that anything uncertain is a threat, of course, taking action feels heavy. Showing up feels like a risk. The idea of doing the thing feels like too much. You've trained yourself to retreat the moment things get uncertain, not because you're weak, but because you've never rewired your brain to understand that discomfort can be a green light rather than a red one. You've been wired to avoid it, to medicate it, to scroll it away, to perfection it into oblivion. But here's the truth that no one wants to admit. You cannot build a powerful life if you're only willing to move when it feels comfortable. Let me say that again. You cannot build a powerful life if you're only willing to move when it feels comfortable. Growth doesn't feel like fireworks and clarity. It feels like tension. It feels like resistance. It feels like stretching into a version of you that you haven't fully met yet. And that's where most people check out. They hit that edge and backpedal. They think this must be a sign I'm not ready. But what if it's actually a sign you're exactly where you need to be? Because the ones who change their lives, they're not avoiding the discomfort. They're building the capacity to hold it, to walk with it, to breathe through it. And that's why most people stay stagnant. They keep waiting for motivation to replace the discomfort, when really, motivation is the result of walking through it. So if you want real change, if you want momentum and freedom and forward movement, you have to start being someone who can hold discomfort and still move. Not avoid it, not numb it, not label it as a sign that you're not ready, but walk with it, sit with it, expand through it. And the version of you want to become, she's not immune to it. She's just built the capacity to keep going anyway. So if you're someone who feels like you're just spinning your wheels, even when you know what to do, even when you want to change, you need to understand something. It's not just about habits. It's about your identity. It's about who you think you are and what you believe you're capable of. You don't take action based on what you want. You take action based on who you believe you are. And if deep down you still see yourself as inconsistent, undisciplined, or not the kind of person who follows through, you'll keep making choices that prove that story true. Not because it is true, but because your brain is wired to protect what's familiar, even when it's the thing holding you back. The brain doesn't want growth. It wants confirmation. It wants to close the loop, to repeat what it knows, to protect the current version of you, even if that version is wildly misaligned with the life you desire. So if your identity says, I never finish things, or I'm not a morning person, or I don't stick to anything, guess what your actions will mirror? This is why discipline alone doesn't work, because your nervous system is running the show underneath everything. And when the inner story doesn't match the outer action, you'll sabotage it every single time. You can set goals, you can create a vision board, you can map out your entire year on a whiteboard. But if you still see yourself as just a character, someone reacting to the script, following the cues, waiting for direction, you'll keep making choices that match that version of you. But you're not the character. You're the fucking director. You decide what happens next. You set the tone. You call the shots. And the second you start acting like it, that's when everything shifts. That's why identity work is so powerful, because when you shift who you believe you are, your actions follow, your decisions change, your patterns, they break. And now you're saying, Mary, that sounds great, but how the hell do I do that? You move before it feels natural. You act before it's automatic. You choose differently before it's comfortable. This is where action becomes identity. This is where micro shifts become massive shifts, not because of the task itself, but because of what it tells your brain. Because when you say yes to the workout, the plan, the hard thing you'd normally avoid, your brain starts collecting new evidence. Maybe I am the kind of person who follows through. Maybe I can trust myself to do what I say I'm going to do. This is the part that doesn't get enough airtime. You don't build confidence by feeling confident. You build it by showing your system that you can feel the resistance and move anyway. That's how self-trust is built. That's how identity shifts. And that's how motivation stops being the requirement and starts becoming the byproduct. But let's be honest, sometimes you know everything we've talked about so far, and still you don't want to move. You don't want to start. You're just not feeling it. And in that moment, most people either beat themselves up and spiral into shame or completely check out and say, maybe tomorrow. But here's what no one tells you. That moment, that's the exact place where your power lives. Because if you only act when it's easy, you're not building capacity. You're building convenience. And convenience doesn't change your life. So what do you do when you know all of this and you still don't want to start? You disrupt the cycle. You shift the story. You create the spark manually. And if you're wondering how, I'm going to tell you. One thing you can do is set a 5-minute timer. Tell yourself, I don't have to do the whole thing. I just have to start for 5 minutes. Why does this work? Because you're not trying to overcome resistance with willpower. You're making the action so small, it's impossible to reject. And once you start, the resistance loses its grip, momentum activates, and you're in motion. Remember, your brain doesn't want you to be productive. It wants you to be safe. 5 minutes feels safe, so use it. I'm going to link my favorite productivity timer in the show notes. Go grab one and get started. Number 2, change your environment. Energy is contagious. If your space is stale, cluttered, distracting, it's going to feed your resistance. This doesn't mean you have to go full reset mode. It means step outside, light a candle, turn on a playlist. Reclaim your energy by shifting your surroundings. Even a 1% shift in your environment can lead to a 100% shift in behavior. Give yourself the gift of a reset, not a reward, a fucking reset. Number 3, reconnect with your future self. Here's the question I always ask myself when I feel the pull to scroll, delay, or disappear. Who pays the price if I don't show up today? It's never just about the task. It's about the self-trust, the energy, the ripple. Will skipping one day ruin your life? No. But what happens when every time it's hard, you disappear? It reinforces the very identity you're trying to outgrow. Instead, picture your future self, not the ideal version of you, but the real one you know you're becoming. The one who's bold, clear, resilient, rooted. What does she need from you right now? And then even if you're tired, scattered, unmotivated, choose one small action that builds a bridge to her, not because you feel like it, but because that's who you are now. This is how you override the resistance, not with perfection, not with fake positivity, but with presence. This is the real work, learning to move without the mood. So look, you don't need another list of habits. You already know what to do. The problem isn't knowledge, it's letting resistance take the lead. So here's what I want to leave you with. This week, notice who's running the show, the part of you that craves comfort or the part of you that's ready for more. And I'm not asking you to do more. I'm asking you to decide differently, because every time you wait for motivation, you're reinforcing the story that you need to feel ready to rise. But what if readiness isn't a feeling? What if it's just a choice you keep skipping? So instead of asking, what should I do today? Ask this. What choice would remind me who I actually am? And then make that one, because you don't rise when the stars align. You rise when you stop letting your fucking resistance narrate your story. And that, my friends, is the shift. Thanks for tuning in today. If this episode hit home, subscribe and share it with a friend, because together we can bring more women into this wild, unapologetic space. Remember, waiting until you feel ready is the fastest way to nowhere. So show up, embrace the fear, and do the fucking thing. And don't forget to subscribe to my Unapologetically Wild Chronicles. The link's in the show notes. Until next time, stay wild.